No president had previously been indicted. No president had previously been prosecuted. And in the last 4 years, we've seen Donald Trump indicted and prosecuted not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 separate times.
There are 2 very different stories being told about the Department of Justice right now, and they cannot both be true. One story says the DOJ was weaponized, politicized, and turned into a tool to destroy political enemies. The other story says exactly the same thing, but points at a completely different administration. This is a confirmation hearing for Pam Bondi, Trump's pick for Attorney General. And when Senator Ted Cruz takes his turn, he does not ask hard questions. He does not press her on independence or accountability. He does something very different. He builds a case, a defense, a counter narrative designed to flip the entire framing of this hearing on its head. His argument is simple. He says everything the Democrats are accusing the incoming administration of planning to do, the Biden administration already did. He says the DOJ was already a weapon. He says it was already aimed at political opponents. He says it already operated without equal justice. And he says Pam Bondi is not the threat. She is the solution. Now, here is why this matters beyond just one senator making a speech, because if Cruz is right, then the entire line of questioning from Democratic senators about DOJ independence is just political theater from people who never cared about independence to begin with. But if Cruz is wrong, or if he is selectively telling only part of the story, then what you are watching is a senior senator using a confirmation hearing to run cover for an attorney general who will go on to do exactly what the Democrats feared. One of these things is true. Maybe both are partially true, but you need to understand both sides of this argument to see the full picture. Watch how Cruz makes his case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Bondi, welcome. Thank you for your long career in public service, and thank you for your willingness to take on this incredibly important office. You know, I have to say, I don't know that there is a more important position in this new administration than the position to which you have been nominated, Attorney General of the United States. I thought the exchange just a moment ago with Senator Hirono was illustrative. She asked you how you would respond if the president asked you to target his political enemies. It's rather striking because it's not a hypothetical. It has happened over the last 4 years. And I think perhaps the most tragic legacy of the Biden-Harris administration has been the politicization and the weaponization of the United States Department of Justice. And we don't need to ask hypothetically because Joe Biden publicly mused and allowed the New York Times to report it, calling on Merrick Garland, why will he not prosecute Trump more quickly? And Merrick Garland, sadly, he sat in that chair and promised to be apolitical, and he broke that promise almost the instant he walked into the Department of Justice. If you look on the west pediment of the Supreme Court of the United States, just above the entrance, there's a simple yet profound four-word phrase, equal justice under law. We have seen over the last 4 years a Department of Justice that systematically targeted the political opponents of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and that systematically protected his friends and allies. And it is tragic to see the loss of confidence in the American people, in the Department of Justice, and in the FBI. I would note, I don't think there's an institution in America who has lost more respect from the American people than the FBI has in the last 4 years. That is a grotesque violation of the obligation of the Department of Justice and the FBI. So I want to start with just a very simple question. If you are confirmed as Attorney General, will you pledge to fairly and faithfully uphold the law regardless of party?
So help me God.
Amen. Look, and I want to be clear for folks at home. I don't want a Republican Department of Justice. I don't want a Democrat Department of Justice. I want a Department of Justice that follows the damn law. And I think the American people do too. That shouldn't be too much to expect. Now, I'm grateful to President Trump for nominating you. I think on any objective level, you're clearly qualified for this position. You have been a prosecutor for decades. You have been the elected Attorney General of the state of Florida, the third largest state in America, for 8 years. Let me ask you, in terms of your practice, how many criminal cases over the course of your career have you personally handled?
Handled thousands.
How many of those were before a jury?
Hundreds. I don't want to overstate, but hundreds. I was in a courtroom for many years. I tried 4 when I was an intern, jury trials. I think you had to try at least 20 in misdemeanor before you went to felony. Then you were in court every day, and I was also lead trial attorney for many years trying many cases. So.
And how many of those cases would have been before a judge?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds as well, but hundreds before a jury, I would assume.
And as Attorney General of Florida, how many lawyers did you supervise roughly?
Approximately 400, Senator.
Now, I also want to clarify something. During the course of this hearing, several Democrat senators have referred to you as President Trump's, quote, personal lawyer. Now I don't believe that is an accurate characterization. As I understand it, you represented President Trump as a White House special advisor during his first impeachment trial. Is that correct?
Within Office of White House Counsel, yes, Senator.
And is working within the White House counsel's office different than representing Donald J. Trump individually as his personal lawyer?
Absolutely.
How's it different?
You're working for the government. You're working for the Office of White House Counsel. You're not representing him in his personal capacity.
And so you have not represented him in his business affairs, in his personal life, or in any of the criminal trials he has faced?
No, Senator.
And, you know, when it comes to weaponization, it's worth noting that in more than 2 centuries of our nation's history, no president had previously been indicted, no president had previously been prosecuted until the Biden-Harris White House came along. And in the last 4 years, we've seen Donald Trump indicted and prosecuted not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 separate times.
And 2 assassination attempts, Senator.
I have to say, Javert from Les Mis would be chagrined at the efforts of Democrats to do anything possible to take him down. And I believe the real target in this was not President Trump, but it was the American people, that these prosecutions were brought because partisan prosecutors were terrified that the American people would do exactly what they did in November of 2024 and vote to reelect Donald J. Trump.
By 77.3%. Million Americans, 77.3 million Americans.
Will you commit every day as Attorney General to follow the law, to follow the Constitution, to uphold the rule of law without favor and without regard to the partisan position of any criminal defendant?
Yes, Senator.
That's what we should all expect from an Attorney General. Thank you.
So here is what you just watched. And here is the full picture that Cruz did not give you. Cruz makes 3 core arguments. First, that the Biden DOJ was weaponized against Trump. Second, that Bondi is clearly qualified and independent. Third, that she will follow the law without partisan favor. Let's go through all 3 honestly. On the first argument, Cruz is not making things up entirely. There are real documented grievances on the Republican side. The FBI did analyze phone records of multiple Republican lawmakers as part of the investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 election. That is confirmed. The Jack Smith prosecutions of Trump, while legally grounded according to the indictments, were pursued against the former president in an unprecedented way. And Biden did reportedly ask why Merrick Garland was not moving faster on Trump prosecutions which the New York Times reported, and which is a legitimate accountability concern regardless of your politics. These are real things. Cruz is not inventing them. But here is what Cruz left out. He said Bondi is not Trump's personal lawyer. He pointed out she served within the White House counsel's office during the first impeachment. That is technically accurate. But what Cruz did not mention is that Bondi publicly pushed false claims that Trump won Pennsylvania in the 2020 election. She did that as a private citizen and as a political ally. She also received a $25,000 donation from the Trump Foundation to her Political Action Committee in 2013, right around the time her office decided not to pursue a fraud investigation into Trump University. That decision drew a formal ethics complaint at the time. Cruz said he wants a DOJ that follows the law without partisan favor. That is a genuinely good principle. But the record since Bondi was confirmed tells a different story than the promise Cruz extracted from her in that hearing room. Within months of taking office, Bondi's DOJ indicted former FBI Director James Comey, a case that was later dismissed. Grand juries rejected cases against multiple Democratic senators. The case against New York Attorney General Tish James was dismissed. Journalists were arrested at Bondi's personal direction. A bribery investigation into Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, who was reportedly caught on tape accepting $50,000 in cash from an undercover FBI agent, was quietly closed. Bondi refused to discuss it under oath and refused to say whether she had spoken to the president about it. And then there is the most revealing moment of all. At a later Senate oversight hearing in October 2025, Trump posted on social media directing Bondi by name to prosecute specific political opponents. He wrote, "We can't delay any longer, Pam. Justice must be served now." He named Comey, he named Schiff, he named others. When asked about it directly, Bondi said Trump is the most transparent president in American history and that he had not said anything he had not said for years. That is not independence. That is an attorney general treating a public presidential order to prosecute named individuals as normal and acceptable. Cruz stood in that hearing room and said he wanted a DOJ that follows the damn law. That was a genuine, powerful statement, and it deserved a genuine, powerful attorney general to back it up. What America got instead was an attorney general who said yes to that question under oath and then went on to close bribery investigations, arrest journalists, and treat presidential social media posts naming prosecution targets as unremarkable. The promise was made in that room. The record was written outside of it. Equal justice under law. It is carved above the Supreme Court. And it means something or it means nothing. Right now, that is the central question being answered in real time by the people who swore to uphold it. If you think this kind of accountability coverage matters, subscribe and stay with us. This story is still far from over.